Sir, we're going to need you to come with us. The flight attendant's voice cuts through the cabin like a blade, loud enough for everyone in first class to hear. There's been a complaint about your behavior. 34-year-old Marcus sits frozen in seat 2A, his medical textbook open on his lap, looking up at the 3 flight crew members now surrounding him. Around him, passengers crane their necks to watch. Phones come out. The spectacle is beginning. My behavior? Marcus's voice is steady despite his racing heart. I've been sitting here reading. I haven't moved since we boarded. A passenger has expressed concerns. The lead flight attendant, Jennifer, according to her name tag, keeps her voice professionally cold. For everyone's safety, we need you to come to the back of the plane. Marcus looks around the first-class cabin. Every face is white. Every eye is on him. And in seat 3C, a middle-aged white woman in expensive jewelry clutches her purse tighter, her face pinched with fear and satisfaction. Let me guess, Marcus says quietly. Someone said I looked suspicious. Sir, please don't make this difficult. Gather your belongings and come with us now. But what the flight crew doesn't know about the suspicious black man they're about to humiliate in front of 180 passengers is that he's one of the country's top cardiac surgeons. The man they're treating like a threat has saved over 3,000 lives. The passenger they're profiling is about to become the only person on this plane who can prevent a disaster that will kill everyone aboard. And in about 20 minutes, when the pilot's heart stops beating at 35,000 feet, they're all going to wish they'd treated Marcus with a little more respect. American Airlines Flight 2847 from Chicago to Los Angeles. Boeing 737-800. Scheduled departure 2:15 p.m., scheduled arrival 4:45 p.m., Pacific, 3 hours and 30 minutes of routine flying over America's heartland. First class holds 20 passengers, business travelers with laptops, wealthy retirees heading to grandchildren, a few lucky upgrades, the kind of people who pay extra for legroom and free drinks, and the illusion of separation from the masses in economy. Marcus earned his first-class seat the hard way. Didn't pay for an upgrade, earned it through 200,000 miles of flying to medical conferences, speaking engagements, emergency consultations at hospitals that needed his expertise. He's executive platinum status, the level where airlines pretend to care about you. He'd boarded early, taken his window seat in row 2, pulled out his cardiac surgery textbook, a 1,200-page monster reviewing the latest techniques in minimally invasive procedures, and settled in for a quiet flight where he could study. He had a presentation in Los Angeles tomorrow morning, grand rounds at Cedars-Sinai, 200 doctors waiting to hear his insights on revolutionary approaches to treating heart failure. The flight was full. Economy passengers still boarding, shuffling down the aisle with oversized carry-ons, searching for overhead bin space. Marcus barely noticed. He was deep in Chapter 14, reviewing coronary bypass techniques. That's when the woman in 3C started staring. Marcus felt her eyes on him before he saw her. That prickling awareness that comes from being watched. He glanced up. She was in her mid-50s, blonde hair, professionally styled, designer clothes, the kind of woman who probably lived in a gated community and called the police when black teenagers walked through her neighborhood. She was staring at him with barely concealed fear, eyes wide, mouth tight, clutching her purse like he might lunge across the aisle and snatch it. Marcus knew this dance, had performed it his entire life. Make yourself smaller, less threatening, smile pleasantly, prove you're not dangerous. He'd looked down at his textbook, trying to ignore her, but he could feel her staring, feel her fear radiating across the 3 feet of first-class aisle. When the flight attendant had walked by doing the pre-flight check, the woman had flagged her down, whispered something, glanced meaningfully at Marcus. The flight attendant had nodded, patted her shoulder reassuringly. And now, here they were. 3 flight crew members surrounding him, every passenger watching, his face burning with humiliation he'd felt 1,000 times before. What exactly am I being accused of? Marcus asked, keeping his voice level even as rage built in his chest. "We're not accusing you of anything," Jennifer said in that condescending tone service workers used when they'd already decided you were the problem. "We just need you to move to a different seat, for everyone's comfort." Everyone's comfort. Marcus looked at the woman in 3C, who was now looking away, pretending she hadn't caused this. "You mean her comfort, because a black man reading a medical textbook apparently constitutes a threat. Sir, please don't make this about race. What else would it be about?" Marcus closed his textbook, anger making his hands shake slightly. "I'm sitting here quietly, reading, bothering no one. But someone feels uncomfortable. Let me guess. If I was a white man in a suit reading the same book, we wouldn't be having this conversation." A few passengers shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. The truth hung in the air like smoke. "We need to prioritize passenger safety," Jennifer said, doubling down. "If someone feels threatened, I'm a cardiac surgeon." Marcus pulled out his hospital ID, held it up. "Dr. Marcus Williams, attending surgeon at Northwestern Memorial. I'm flying to Los Angeles to present at a medical conference. This textbook I'm reading, it's about how to repair human hearts. I'm literally studying how to save lives." The flight attendant barely glanced at his ID. "That's wonderful, sir, but we still need you to move. Company policy." "Company policy to discriminate based on race?" "Company policy to respond to passenger concerns." Her voice got harder. "Now you can move voluntarily, or we can have security remove you from the flight. Your choice." Marcus looked around the first-class cabin, saw a dozen phones recording, knew this video would be viral by tonight. "Black doctor removed from flight." Another headline, another hashtag, another moment of humiliation for the entertainment of social media. He could comply. Move to the back. Swallow his dignity, avoid escalation. Or he could stand his ground, force them to physically remove him, make them own their racism explicitly. Before he could decide, an older white man in row 1, expensive suit, silver hair, spoke up. "For God's sake, just let the man sit. He's clearly not a threat. This is ridiculous." Jennifer's face tightened. "Sir, please stay out of this." "I will not stay out of it. I'm a federal judge, and what you're doing is textbook discrimination. This man has done nothing wrong. You're harassing him because a racist passenger made a complaint. If you remove him, I guarantee there will be consequences." Other passengers murmured agreement. The tide was shifting. Marcus felt a small surge of hope. But then the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a slight delay while we resolve a security matter. We appreciate your patience." Security matter. Marcus closed his eyes. They were going to remove him. Make an example. Show everyone who really had power here. 2 airport security officers boarded the plane, large men in uniform with stern faces. They walked straight to Marcus's row. "Sir, you need to come with us." "I haven't done anything wrong," Marcus said, but he was already standing. No point in resisting. That's how black men got hurt, got killed. He knew the rules of survival. He gathered his bag, his textbook, his jacket, walked down the first-class aisle with his head up, refusing to show shame he didn't feel. Behind him, the woman in 3C wouldn't meet his eyes. At the front of the plane, Jennifer spoke quietly to the security officers. Marcus caught fragments. Made other passengers uncomfortable, refused to comply. Potential security risk. "I'm a doctor," Marcus said one more time. "I have hospital ID, medical license, conference credentials." I was sitting quietly reading. "This is racial profiling, pure and simple." One of the security officers looked uncomfortable. The other was stone-faced. "Sir, the flight crew has the authority to remove any passenger they deem a security risk. Please come with us." They escorted him off the plane, through the jetway, into the terminal. Every step was recorded by dozens of phone cameras. Gate agents stared. Other passengers watched with a mixture of sympathy and suspicion. In the terminal, they took him to a small security office, asked him questions, checked his ID, verified his story, searched his bag, finding nothing but medical textbooks, conference materials, and a change of clothes. The whole process took 45 minutes. By the end, both security officers were apologetic. "Dr. Williams, we're sorry about this. You clearly aren't a threat. But when a flight crew makes a complaint, we have to follow protocol." Even when the complaint is obviously based on racism? The officer who'd looked uncomfortable earlier nodded. "Yeah, even then. For what it's worth, I think this is bullshit. But I can't override the crew's decision. So what happens now?" "You can take another flight. There's one leaving in 3 hours. I'll make sure you get boarded without any issues." Marcus looked at his watch. 3 hours delay meant he'd miss his hotel check-in time. He'd arrive in Los Angeles exhausted. He'd have less time to prepare for tomorrow's presentation. All because a racist woman had felt uncomfortable. "Fine," he said tiredly. "Book me on the next flight." They escorted him back through the terminal to the gate. As he walked, Marcus saw Flight 2847 pushing back from the gate, the plane he should have been on, leaving without him. He watched it taxi toward the runway, felt the familiar burn of humiliation and rage that came from being treated like a criminal for existing while black. The security officer was apologetic as he helped Marcus rebook. "Again, I'm really sorry about this. For what it's worth, I think you handled it with a lot of grace. I would have been much angrier." "I am angry," Marcus said quietly. "I'm always angry. I'm just too tired to show it anymore." He found a seat at the gate for his new flight, pulled out his phone. Sure enough, the video was already going viral. Black Doctor removed trending. Comments, section a predictable mix of outrage and racist justifications. Marcus closed Twitter. Didn't have the energy for that right now. He opened his textbook again, tried to focus on studying, but the words blurred. His hands were shaking. 34 years old, top of his profession, saved thousands of lives, still treated like a threat because of his skin color. This is America, he thought bitterly. This is still America. What Marcus didn't know was that Flight 2847, the plane he should have been on, was about to face a crisis that would kill everyone aboard. And the only person who could save them had just been removed from the flight. Flight 2847 reached cruising altitude 20 minutes after takeoff. Captain Richard Holland, 56 years old, 28 years of flying experience, guided the Boeing 737 to 35,000 feet and engaged autopilot. Routine flight. Clear weather. No issues. In the cockpit, Captain Holland and First Officer Amy Rodriguez ran through standard procedures. Everything normal. The flight would be boring, the best kind of flight. In the cabin, passengers settled in, laptops out in first class, movies playing on screens in economy, flight attendants beginning drink service. In seat 3C, the woman who'd complained about Marcus relaxed with her vodka tonic, satisfied that she'd made the flight safer. See something, say something. She'd done her civic duty. Captain Holland felt the first twinge of pain at 2:47 p.m., 12 minutes into the flight. A slight pressure in his chest. Nothing alarming. Probably just indigestion from the airport burrito he'd eaten before the flight. He ignored it, focused on his instruments. The pressure got worse, spread across his chest like a weight. His left arm started tingling. At 2:49 p.m., Captain Holland realized with cold clarity that he was having a heart attack. "Amy," he said quietly to his first officer, "I need you to take controls. I'm not feeling well." First Officer Rodriguez looked at him with immediate concern. "What's wrong?" "Chest pain, left arm tingling. I think—" He gasped as the pain intensified. "I think I'm having a cardiac event." Jesus. Amy grabbed the radio. "This is Flight 2847. We have a medical emergency. Captain is experiencing chest pain, possible heart attack, requesting immediate medical assistance and priority clearance for emergency landing." Air traffic control responded immediately. Flight 2847, understood. What's your current position? Just passing over Iowa. We can divert to Des Moines. Affirmative. Des Moines Airport is notified. Emergency services standing by. Descend to 10,000 feet and maintain heading. Captain Holland slumped forward. His hands went limp. His eyes rolled back. Richard? Amy grabbed him, tried to shake him awake. No response. She checked his pulse, weak, thready, irregular. He was crashing fast. She pressed the button for the flight attendant call. This is the cockpit. I need medical assistance up here now. The captain has collapsed. In the cabin, Jennifer's face went pale as she heard the message in her headset. The captain had collapsed. They had a medical emergency in the cockpit. She grabbed the PA microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical emergency. If there is a doctor or medical professional on board, please identify yourself immediately. Silence. Passengers looked at each other nervously. A few people half raised their hands, EMTs, a nurse, a medical student, but no doctors. Jennifer's heart sank. They'd just removed a cardiac surgeon from this flight. A cardiac surgeon who could have helped the captain with a suspected heart attack, and she'd kicked him off the plane for making a racist passenger feel uncomfortable. In the cockpit, First Officer Rodriguez was trying to handle two crises simultaneously. First, keep the plane flying. She was fully qualified, had hundreds of hours as first officer, but she'd never had to handle an emergency landing solo while the captain was dying beside her. Second, try to keep the captain alive, but she had no medical training beyond basic first aid, and Captain Holland was clearly in severe distress, face gray, breathing shallow and irregular, pulse barely detectable. Flight 2847, what's your status? Air Traffic Control's voice was urgent. Captain has lost consciousness. Possible cardiac arrest. I'm attempting CPR while flying the plane. I need... She broke off. How could she do CPR while piloting during an emergency descent? Is there any medical personnel on board who can assist the captain? Amy grabbed her radio to the cabin. Jennifer, what medical assistance do we have? Jennifer's voice came back, shaky. We have an EMT and a nurse. No doctors on board. Send them up, now. The EMT and nurse arrived in the cockpit 30 seconds later. The EMT, a young guy in his 20s, took one look at Captain Holland and started CPR compressions. The nurse, a middle-aged woman, checked vital signs. He's in cardiac arrest, the nurse said. No pulse. Breathing has stopped. We need a defibrillator. There's an AED in the forward cabin, Amy said, not taking her eyes off her instruments as she guided the plane into emergency descent. But I don't know if it'll work. He needs real medical intervention. We need to get this plane on the ground. The AED arrived. The nurse applied the pads to Captain Holland's chest. The machine analyzed his heart rhythm. Shock advised, the machine's automated voice announced. Clear! The nurse pressed the button. Captain Holland's body jerked. The EMT immediately resumed compressions. They shocked him 3 times. Nothing. His heart wouldn't restart. How far to Des Moines? Amy asked Air Traffic Control, trying to keep her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her throat. 22 minutes at current speed. 22 minutes. The captain would be dead long before then, and Amy was realizing another horrifying truth. She was having trouble seeing her instruments clearly. Her own hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. She was having a panic response to the stress, adrenaline flooding her system, making fine motor control difficult. She'd trained for emergencies, but she'd never trained for flying solo during an emergency descent while the captain died next to her, and she started having a physiological stress response that made it hard to think clearly. Flight 2847, are you able to maintain controlled descent? Air Traffic Control could hear the stress in her voice. Affirmative, Amy lied. She had to be able to do this. There was no alternative. 182 people counting on her. But her hands were shaking harder. Her vision was tunneling. The instruments were blurring. She was experiencing the early stages of an acute stress reaction. Her body was betraying her at the worst possible moment. And in 22 minutes, she'd have to land this plane, solo, in a state of psychological crisis, with a dead captain beside her. In the cabin, passengers were starting to panic. The plane's descent was steep enough that people could feel it. The announcement about a medical emergency had spread through whispers and texts. People knew something was very wrong. Jennifer stood at the front of first class, her face pale, realizing the magnitude of her mistake. They'd removed a cardiac surgeon who could have saved the captain, who could have helped land the plane, because a racist passenger felt uncomfortable. The woman in 3C was crying now, her earlier satisfaction replaced by terror as she realized her complaint might kill everyone on this plane. In the terminal in Chicago, Marcus sat at his new gate, studying his textbook, unaware that the flight he'd been removed from was in crisis. His phone buzzed. Text from a colleague. "Dude, are you okay? I'm seeing videos of you getting kicked off a flight." Marcus sighed. So it was spreading. His humiliation was entertainment for the masses now. He texted back, "I'm fine, just racism as usual, on a different flight now." Another buzz, this time from his department head at Northwestern. "Marcus, I just saw the video. Are you all right? Do you need anything?" "Just need people to stop treating me like a criminal for existing," Marcus typed, then deleted it. Typed instead, "I'm okay. Flying out on the next flight. See you after the conference." His new flight was boarding in 40 minutes. He'd get to Los Angeles eventually, give his presentation, move on with his life. Add this incident to the long list of racial humiliations he'd endured. Just another day being black in America. What he didn't know was that his phone was about to ring with a call that would change everything. In the cockpit of Flight 2847, things were deteriorating rapidly. Captain Holland was clinically dead. The EMT had been doing CPR for 7 minutes, far longer than most people could sustain effective compressions. He was exhausted. The nurse had shocked the captain 6 times with the AED. Nothing was working. First Officer Rodriguez was losing her ability to function. Her panic response was worsening. She was hyperventilating now, which was making the tunnel vision worse. Her hands weren't just shaking. They were trembling so badly she could barely grip the controls. "Flight 2847, we're detecting irregular flight path. Are you able to maintain controlled flight?" Air traffic control's voice was sharp with concern. Amy wanted to say yes, wanted to believe she could do this, but she was spiraling. The stress was overwhelming her training. She was going to crash this plane. She gasped for breath. "I need help. I can't do this alone." Silence on the radio. Then, "Flight 2847, is there anyone else who can assist with piloting the aircraft?" In the cabin, Jennifer heard the transmission in her headset. Her blood ran cold. They needed someone who could help fly the plane, someone with aviation knowledge, someone who could think clearly under pressure. They had no one. And the man they'd removed, Dr. Marcus Williams, was sitting in Chicago, probably watching this disaster unfold on the news. Jennifer made a decision. She grabbed her personal phone, pulled up the viral video of Marcus being removed, found his name, searched for him online, found his hospital, profile at Northwestern Memorial, called the hospital. "This is an emergency. I need to reach Dr. Marcus Williams immediately. It's literally life or death." The hospital operator connected her to Marcus's cell phone. In the terminal, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Dr. Williams?" A woman's voice, shaking with terror. "This is Jennifer from Flight 2847, the flight you were removed from. We have an emergency. The captain has had a heart attack. He's dead. The first officer is having a panic attack. The plane is going to crash. We need—" Her voice broke. "We need your help. Please." Marcus felt the world stop. The flight he'd been kicked off of. The people who'd humiliated him, now begging for his help. You removed me from the flight, he said quietly. Called me a security risk. Had me escorted off by police. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But please, there are 182 people on this plane who are going to die in 17 minutes if you can't help us. Please. Marcus looked at his watch. The flight had been in the air for about 25 minutes. They'd be somewhere over Iowa now, too far for him to physically reach them. How exactly am I supposed to help from Chicago? The first officer needs medical guidance. She's having an acute stress response. She can't function. We need you to talk her through it. And the captain, he's dead. But maybe you can tell us what to do. Marcus closed his eyes. Every fiber of his being wanted to say no. Wanted to let them face the consequences of their racism. Wanted them to understand what it felt like to be dismissed and humiliated. But 182 people were about to die. Most of them hadn't done anything wrong. They were just passengers who wanted to get to Los Angeles. And he was a doctor. He'd sworn an oath to help, even when it wasn't convenient, even when it wasn't fair. Put me on speaker, Marcus said. Connect me to the cockpit. The second golden beat was about to land. The moment when the dismissed expert becomes the only hope for survival. Marcus stood up in the terminal, grabbing his bag. I need the cockpit radio frequency, and I need to know exactly what medical equipment you have on board. Jennifer was crying with relief. Thank you. Oh, God, thank you. Connecting you now. Marcus heard the connection click through. Background noise of the cockpit. Alarms. The EMT still doing compressions. Someone crying. This is Dr. Marcus Williams, he said in his calmest, most authoritative doctor voice. The voice he used in trauma situations when everyone was panicking and needed someone to take control. I'm a cardiac surgeon. Who am I speaking to? First Officer Amy Rodriguez. Her voice was gasping, panicked. I can't breathe. Can't see straight. Captain is dead. I can't land this plane. We're going to crash. Amy, listen to me very carefully. You're having an acute stress response. It's a normal physiological reaction to extreme stress. Your sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive. But we can fix this. Do you trust me? I don't know you. I'm the doctor your flight crew removed for being suspicious. The cardiac surgeon who was reading a textbook in first class. I'm also the only person who can help you right now, so I'm going to need you to trust me. Can you do that? A pause. Then, yes. Okay, yes. Good. First, we're going to regulate your breathing. You're hyperventilating, which is why you can't see straight. That's tunnel vision from oxygen imbalance. I need you to breathe with me. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Can you do that? I'll try. Don't try. Do it. In 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Again. In 2, 3, 4. Marcus walked through the terminal as he coached Amy's breathing, his medical training taking over completely. He found a quiet corner where he could focus. How do you feel now? He asked after 2 minutes of breathing exercises. Better. A little better. Vision is clearing. Good. Your hands are probably still shaking. That's adrenaline. We can't eliminate it, but we can work with it. You're not going to have perfect fine motor control, so we need to compensate. Are you still in emergency descent? Yes. Descending to 10,000 feet for emergency landing in Des Moines. How far out are you? 14 minutes. Okay. Autopilot still engaged? Yes. Perfect. Leave it engaged as long as possible. Don't try to hand fly until you absolutely have to. The autopilot doesn't have a stress response. Let it do the work. You just monitor. Can you do that? I think so. Not think, can you? Yes, I can do that. Good. Now let's talk about the captain. Is someone still doing CPR? The EMT's exhausted voice came through. I've been doing compressions for 9 minutes. I'm losing effectiveness. He's been down too long. I think he's gone. Marcus thought fast. 9 minutes of CPR with multiple AED shocks and no response. If this was a normal cardiac arrest, the captain was dead. Brain damage would be irreversible after this long without circulation. But Marcus knew something most people didn't. Sometimes, very rarely, in cases of specific types of heart attacks, there was a window where aggressive intervention could restart the heart even after prolonged arrest. "What was the captain's initial presentation?" Marcus asked. "Before he lost consciousness," the nurse responded. "Chest pain, left arm tingling, classic heart attack symptoms, sudden collapse about 2 minutes after symptoms started. Sounds like acute MI, probably left anterior descending artery. The Widowmaker. Did the AED show any specific rhythm?" "Ventricular fibrillation initially, now showing asystole. Flatline, no electrical activity in the heart. Most protocols would call this futile." But Marcus had read a case study 2 months ago about a new protocol for refractory cardiac arrest. Aggressive CPR combined with a specific sequence of medications. It had a 3% success rate, terrible odds, but better than zero. "Listen carefully," Marcus said. "This is going to sound extreme, but we have nothing to lose. Do you have epinephrine in the medical kit?" "Yes." "I need you to administer it directly into the captain's heart. Intracardiac injection." Silence. Then, That's not standard protocol. That's incredibly dangerous." "He's already dead. We're past standard protocol. The only chance, and it's a very small chance, is shocking his heart back into rhythm with direct cardiac stimulation. Do you know how to do an intracardiac injection?" I've read about it. Never done it. I'll walk you through it. And I need whoever's doing compressions to continue non-stop. We need circulation even if it's artificial. Are you ready?" The nurse's voice was shaking. "If we do this wrong, we could cause more damage. He's dead. There is no more damage. Now, are you ready?" "Yes." For the next 3 minutes, Marcus talked the nurse through finding the correct injection site, fourth intercostal space, just to the left of the sternum. Guided her on needle angle, depth, how to aspirate to confirm cardiac position. Then the injection of epinephrine directly into the heart muscle. "AED again," Marcus ordered. "Shock him now while the epinephrine is still concentrated." The shock delivered. Everyone watched the monitor. Nothing. Still flatline. Again, maximum charge. Another shock. The monitor beeped, a single spike, then another. Irregular, weak, but present. "We have a rhythm," the nurse shouted. "Weak and irregular, but he has a heartbeat." "Continue chest compressions," Marcus said. "That rhythm isn't strong enough to perfuse on its own. You need to manually circulate until it stabilizes." "But his heart is beating. His brain is getting oxygen again. You just bought him a chance." In the cockpit, Amy Rodriguez was crying with relief. "He's alive. Oh my God, he's alive." "He's critically unstable," Marcus corrected. "But alive, which means you can focus on flying this plane. How are you feeling?" "Better. Breathing is under control. Vision is clear. Hands are still shaky but manageable." "That's adrenaline. You're going to have to land with shaky hands. But you've done this 1,000 times in training. Your muscle memory knows what to do even if your conscious mind is scared. Trust your training. How far to Des Moines?" 8 minutes. "Okay. Talk me through your approach. What's your plan?" For the next 8 minutes, Marcus stayed on the line as Amy worked through her approach checklist. He wasn't a pilot, but he understood stress management, and he could hear when her breathing started to accelerate again. Every time he'd coach her back down. "Amy, you're starting to hyperventilate again. Breathe with me. In for 4. "I can't do this. The runway is too short. The crosswind is too strong. I'm going to crash." "No, you're catastrophizing. That's the stress response. What do the instruments actually say?" "Runway is 9,000 feet. We need 6,000. Crosswind is 12 knots within limits. So you can land this plane." "In theory." "Not theory, reality. You are going to land this plane. Say it." "I'm going to land this plane." "Again." "I'm going to land this plane." One more time, like you believe it. I am going to land this plane. Damn right you are. Now take her down. Marcus stood in the terminal, phone pressed to his ear, listening as Amy guided Flight 2847 through its final approach. He could hear the tension in her voice, hear the fear, but also hear the competence underneath it. She was doing it. She was going to land the plane. 200 feet, Amy's voice said. 150 feet, 100 feet. I can see the runway, 50 feet. Main gear down, 25 feet. Flare, touchdown. A moment of silence. Then, we're down. We're on the ground. Oh my God, we're on the ground. Through the phone, Marcus could hear cheering in the cabin, crying, relief and joy and disbelief. You did it, Marcus said quietly. You landed the plane. You did it, Amy replied, her voice choked with emotion. You saved us. You saved everyone. You saved everyone. I just talked you through managing your stress response. The flying was all you. The captain is alive because you got the plane down in time. Paramedics are probably boarding now? Yes, I can see them. They're taking him. His odds are still bad. He was down for a long time. But you gave him a chance. That's all anyone can do. Silence. Then, Dr. Williams, Marcus, I'm so sorry. For what happened, for how you were treated. We removed you from this flight because of racism, and then we had to beg you to save us. I don't know how to process that. Marcus closed his eyes. You process it by being better, by speaking up next time, by not letting passengers' racist fears dictate who gets to fly. You process it by remembering that the suspicious black man was the only reason everyone on your plane survived. I will. I promise. I will never forget this, and I will never stay silent again. Good. Now go take care of your passengers. They need you. The call ended. Marcus stood in the terminal, adrenaline still coursing through his system, trying to process what had just happened. He'd saved 182 lives from 800 miles away, had talked a panicking pilot through landing a plane, had restarted a dead man's heart using a technique he'd only read about in a journal article. And he'd done it all after being removed from the flight for making a racist passenger feel uncomfortable. His phone started ringing immediately. News outlets, his hospital, colleagues, everyone had heard. The story was already breaking. Black doctor removed from flight saves everyone after being kicked off. The third golden beat was landing. The moment when the world understood exactly what they'd lost by dismissing him. But Marcus didn't feel triumph. He felt tired, so deeply tired. Because he knew that tomorrow or next week or next month, he'd be profiled again, dismissed again, treated as a threat again. One viral moment of vindication didn't change the daily reality of being black in America. His phone rang, the airline's corporate number. Marcus answered. Yes? Dr. Williams, this is the Chief Operating Officer of American Airlines. I'm calling to personally apologize for what happened today, and to thank you for your extraordinary assistance in saving Flight 2847. Your actions were nothing short of heroic. My actions, Marcus said slowly, wouldn't have been necessary if your flight crew hadn't racially profiled me and removed me from the plane in the first place. I understand. And I want you to know we're conducting a full investigation into what happened. The employees involved will face appropriate consequences. Will they? Or will this blow over in a week and everything go back to normal? A pause. Dr. Williams, I'd like to invite you to our headquarters to discuss not just this incident, but broader changes to our policies and training. We need to do better, and I'd value your input on how. Marcus wanted to say no, wanted to tell them to figure out their own racism without expecting him to educate them for free. But he also knew that real change required uncomfortable conversations, required people who'd been harmed to have the courage to try to prevent the same harm to others. I'll consider it, Marcus said. Send me details. But I want it clear. I'm not interested in being a token. If you're serious about change, I need to see real commitment, policy changes, Training overhauls, accountability measures, not just a photo op with the black doctor you wronged. Understood. I'll send you a proposal. And Dr. Williams, thank you for saving those lives, even after how you were treated. That took extraordinary grace. It took a medical oath, Marcus corrected. I'm a doctor. I help people who need help. That's not grace. That's just my job. He hung up before the COO could respond. Marcus looked at his gate. His rescheduled flight was boarding. He could still make it to Los Angeles, give his presentation tomorrow, continue with his planned life. But something had shifted. He pulled out his phone and called his department head at Northwestern. Marcus, the chairman answered immediately. I've been watching the news. Are you okay? I need to talk to you about something. Can I come in tomorrow instead of flying to LA? Of course. What's going on? I think I want to start a program, training medical professionals on aviation emergencies, but also training aviation professionals on medical issues and implicit bias. What happened today? It shouldn't take a crisis for people to recognize expertise. It shouldn't take a near disaster for people to overcome their prejudices. I think that's an excellent idea. Let's discuss it tomorrow. Cancel the LA conference. I'll handle it. Thank you. Marcus hung up and walked to the airline counter. I need to change my ticket. I'm not flying to Los Angeles. I need to go back into the city. The gate agent looked at him with recognition. Dr. Williams? We just heard what you did. For Flight 2847. That was incredible. It was medicine, Marcus said simply. Can you change my ticket? Absolutely. No charge. It's the least we can do. As she processed his ticket change, news vans were pulling up outside the airport. Reporters wanting to interview the hero doctor. The story was exploding across every platform. But Marcus wasn't interested in being a hero. He was interested in making sure this never happened again. 3 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Marcus stood in front of 300 airline employees, pilots, flight attendants, ground crew, at American Airlines training facility. Behind him, a screen displayed statistics about racial profiling in aviation. Incidents per year. Demographics of passengers removed from flights. The patterns were damning. I was removed from Flight 2847 because a passenger felt uncomfortable, Marcus began. Not because I did anything wrong, not because I posed any actual threat, but because I was a black man reading a book and someone's racial bias told them that was suspicious. He clicked to the next slide. Video footage from that day. Him being escorted off the plane. The humiliation visible on his face. 25 minutes later, the captain of that flight had a massive heart attack. The first officer went into acute stress-induced panic. And the only person on that plane who could have helped them medically was sitting in Chicago, watching it happen on the news. The room was silent. Every person present knew the story. But hearing him tell it firsthand carried different weight. I saved 182 lives that day, but I shouldn't have had to do it by phone from 800 miles away. I should have been on that plane. And the only reason I wasn't was because your company allowed racial bias to override common sense. He clicked to the next slide. Captain Richard Holland's photo. Captain Holland survived. After 2 weeks in ICU, multiple surgeries, and extensive cardiac rehab, he's alive. His doctors say if I hadn't guided that nurse through the intracardiac injection, his brain would have died before you landed. My medical intervention, delivered by phone because I'd been racially profiled, saved his life. Another slide. First Officer Amy Rodriguez. Officer Rodriguez is here today. Amy, would you like to say something? Amy stood from the front row, her face showing emotion. I had a complete psychological breakdown in that cockpit. I couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't think. I was going to crash that plane and kill everyone on board. Her voice steadied. Dr. Williams talked me through it, coached my breathing, managed my panic response, gave me the confidence to land. He saved my life and 181 others, and we had removed him from the flight an hour earlier for doing absolutely nothing wrong. She looked directly at the flight attendants in the room. I will carry that shame for the rest of my career. We allowed a passenger's racism to remove an expert who later saved us all. That cannot happen again. Ever. Amy sat down. Marcus continued. I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here to educate. Because this isn't just about me. This happens every day. To Black passengers, Latino passengers, Middle Eastern passengers, Asian passengers, people are removed from flights, questioned, searched, humiliated, based on racial profiling disguised as security concerns. He clicked through more slides, statistics, case studies, video footage of other incidents. The aviation industry has a bias problem, and that bias is making you less safe, not more safe. When you remove passengers based on racial profiling, you're not removing threats. You're removing potential resources. Doctors, engineers, first responders, people who could help you in a crisis. Next slide. So today we're going to talk about implicit bias, how to recognize it, how to override it, how to distinguish between genuine security concerns and racial prejudice, because your passengers' lives depend on you getting this right. For the next 4 hours, Marcus led them through scenarios, role-playing exercises, data analysis, uncomfortable conversations about race and bias, and the assumptions people made. Some attendees were defensive, some were resistant, but most were engaged, genuinely trying to understand and improve. During a break, Jennifer, the flight attendant who'd removed him from Flight 2847, approached. Dr. Williams, I need to apologize again, in person. What I did was inexcusable. Marcus looked at her. She'd been suspended for 2 weeks after the incident, required to complete extensive bias training. Her career had been damaged by her actions that day. I accept your apology, Marcus said, but more importantly, what are you doing differently now? I speak up. When passengers make racist complaints, I challenge them. I ask for specific behaviors, not vague feelings of discomfort. I document everything, and I refuse to remove passengers unless there's a legitimate, specific, non-racial reason. Good. That's what needs to happen. Systemically. At every airline. Every flight. Jennifer hesitated. Can I ask you something? Why did you help us? After what we did to you? Most people would have let us crash. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because 180 innocent people didn't deserve to die for your mistake. Because I'm a doctor, and doctors help people who need help, regardless of whether they deserve it. And because the best revenge against racism isn't letting people die, it's proving you're better than their assumptions. The program Marcus developed became mandatory training for all American Airlines employees. Then other airlines adopted it. Within 6 months, it was industry standard. But Marcus didn't stop there. He partnered with the FAA to develop protocols for medical emergencies on flights, created training materials for flight crews on recognizing cardiac events, managing stress responses, coordinating with remote medical professionals. He wrote a book, The Invisible Expert: How Bias Blinds Us to the Resources Around Us. It became required reading at several medical schools and business programs. He gave a TED Talk that got 12 million views. The Doctor They Kicked Off the Plane. In it, he explained not just what happened, but why it mattered. How expertise was all around us, in unexpected places, in unexpected people. How bias made us blind to resources that could save us. The woman from Seat 3C, the one who'd complained about him, reached out 6 months later. A long letter, apologizing, explaining that she'd grown up in a racist household, had absorbed those prejudices, had never questioned them until she realized her fear had nearly killed 182 people, including herself. She'd started volunteering with racial justice organizations, started educating herself, started speaking up when family members made racist comments. Marcus wrote her back, brief, but not unkind. Thank you for doing the work to change. That's all any of us can do. Recognize our biases and actively work against them. Captain Holland recovered fully. He and Marcus became friends. The captain spoke publicly about the experience, about his gratitude, about his own realization that he'd stood by while Marcus was removed and said nothing. "I was uncomfortable with what was happening," Holland told a reporter. "But I didn't speak up. I let it happen. That silence was complicity. Dr. Williams didn't just save my life medically, he taught me that silence in the face of injustice is its own form of participation." A year after the incident, Marcus was invited to testify before Congress about racial bias in transportation. He brought data, brought stories, brought concrete policy recommendations. Some representatives dismissed him, but others listened, and slowly policies started changing. Federal guidelines on passenger removal, requirements for bias training, accountability measures for discriminatory actions. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't enough, but it was progress. Marcus continued his work as a cardiac surgeon, continued saving lives in the operating room. But he also became an advocate, a voice for the dismissed and underestimated, a reminder that expertise didn't look how people expected. 2 years after Flight 2847, Marcus received an award from the National Medical Association, the Distinguished Service Medal. The ceremony was attended by Amy Rodriguez, Captain Holland, several passengers from the flight, and even Jennifer, the flight attendant. In his acceptance speech, Marcus was characteristically direct. "I didn't want this medal. I didn't want to become a symbol or an advocate or a spokesman. I wanted to be a doctor, to do my job without being treated like a threat, to fly on planes without being removed for making racists uncomfortable." He paused, looking out at the audience. But we don't always get to choose our moments. Sometimes our moments choose us. And when they do, we have a responsibility to make those moments matter. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who comes after. I was removed from a plane because of racism. Then I saved everyone on that plane despite the racism. That irony isn't lost on me, and I hope it's not lost on anyone who hears this story. Because the lesson isn't that Black people need to prove their value by performing extraordinary acts of grace and competence. The lesson is that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of what they might offer you in return. The question isn't, what if the person you're discriminating against turns out to be important? The question is, why are you discriminating at all? Expertise is everywhere. Knowledge is everywhere. Human value is everywhere. But bias makes us blind to it, makes us remove doctors from planes, makes us dismiss scientists as janitors, makes us treat people as threats instead of resources. So yes, I saved 182 lives after being kicked off a plane, but I shouldn't have had to. And the next person who gets racially profiled might not be a cardiac surgeon, might not have the ability to save the people who wronged them, might just be a regular person who deserves dignity. That's who we should be protecting. Not just the exceptional, but everyone. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. But Marcus knew the real work was ongoing, every day, in every interaction, in every moment when someone had to choose between bias and fairness, between assumption and truth, between what they feared and what was real. The final truth wasn't that Marcus was a hero. It was simpler and more profound than that. Everyone deserves to be seen for who they actually are, not who bias assumes them to be. Expertise exists in unexpected places, and sometimes the person you dismiss is the only one who can save you. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you look? Have you ever witnessed discrimination and stayed silent? Have you ever made assumptions about someone that turned out to be completely wrong? Share your story in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of dismissed experts, hidden knowledge, and the moments when bias meets reality. Because somewhere right now, someone brilliant is being treated as invisible. Someone capable is being dismissed as suspicious. Someone with life-saving knowledge is being told to stay in their lane. Make sure you're not the one doing the dismissing. Remember, the person you remove from the plane might be the only one who can land it. The person you call suspicious might be the one who saves your life. The person you underestimate might be exactly who you need. Marcus proved that, and his story is just beginning.